In 2017, Israeli scientists conducted a series of studies to determine how modern digitalization affects our cognitive functions. By testing for ADHD in people who constantly use a smartphone and those who have never used one before, they concluded that constant scrolling and scrolling on the phone can distract a person enough to diagnose them with ADHD. You might think that this is a big payback for the benefits of the internet and technological advancement, but let's look at the issue in more detail. Have you ever felt like you were lost and didn't understand what you needed to do right now? Or has it happened to you when you go to another room with a firm intention to do something, but when you get there you forget about it? Or maybe it happened that when you go to the store you impulsively buy up something that you don't even really need, but in the moment seemed incredibly important. Perhaps it even happened to you that you completely forgot about some important event that you remembered just the day before. What if I told you that you could easily be identified as someone with one of the ADHD spectrums? And more importantly, in more cases than not, these effects are caused in us on purpose. Let's first understand what attention is and why it is the most valuable human resource. Attention is a psychological process that is responsible for selecting the information we receive from the outside world and our psyche. Attention regulates which stimuli will be perceived preferentially and which will be filtered out or ignored. It is a kind of focus of consciousness that allows a person to concentrate on certain tasks, objects, or thoughts while ignoring others that are less relevant at the moment. Have you ever wondered how this filter is established? Why does one information pass like white noise and then pop up on the screen of consciousness, while the other information can be learned by heart, but is not assimilated in any way? The point is that there are several types of attention. Involuntary attention, when a person consciously concentrates on something using willpower. In spontaneous attention, when attention is drawn automatically, without effort on the part of the individual, often because of the unexpectedness or emotional significance of the stimulus. Sustained attention, the ability to maintain concentration for long periods. Distributed attention, the ability to process multiple tasks or sources of information simultaneously. Attention is closely related to other cognitive processes, such as memory and thinking, and is critical for learning, perception, and performance of complex tasks. Attention disorders can manifest in a variety of pathologies and disorders, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Knowing this information, data people have long ago learned to use attention for their selfish purposes. Business, religion, politics, media, pharmacy, work, etc. all need our attention. Do you think money is the primary goal of most companies and organizations? No. Money is secondary and attention is always primary. Without the first, there will be no second. After all, where attention attracts, their energy flows. Look for yourself just a couple of years ago. Before the advent of smartphones, it was much easier for us to focus our attention on a longer movie or a book. But now, most of the population has moved to the level of clipped thinking, when attention is only enough for short clips like shorts, and most books are now devoured with short retellings. To top it all off, we also can't stand silence and are constantly trying to fill the airwaves to keep our attention from focusing on what we are so good at escaping from, thanks to new technologies. So what is it then? Is it that someone owns and controls our attention, or is it that we are running away from our problems into the virtual world? At one time, I was very impressed by the movie The Tail That Wags the Dog. The events which tell about the ingenious manipulators of human attention, and what kind of performance can be played if you know how to work properly with attention-grabbing techniques.
But
what?
But there isn't a B-3 bomber.
Where did you go to school, kid? Wellesley?
Dartmouth.
Show a little spunk. There is no B-3 bomber. General Scott, the best of your knowledge, is not in Seattle to talk with Bowen.
I won't hold Connie, I won't. John Levy. He is expected to respond to the Firefly's allegation of sexual misconduct by the president.
Ooh, this guy is fucked.
Well, what one has to do, Mr. Morse, is to fight a holding action.
Holding action. They're going to run this man through the shredder.
We can hold a break in the dam for 11 days till the election. I think we got a chance.
Yeah.
Is the situation in Albania related in any way to the Muslim fundamentalist anti-American
Now
uprising?
you get it. Now they're getting it. There you go. There's a little help.
I was also amazed by the stories of great illusionists such as Harry Houdini. One of the most famous magicians in history, and his escape acts have become legendary. One of his most famous tricks is the Chinese water torture chamber act, where Houdini was chained and imprisoned inside a glass chamber filled with water, from where he had to free himself with no apparent means of escape. Also equally famous is David Copperfield, whose most famous stunt was the disappearance of the Statue of Liberty, which was shown on live television. He used a huge curtain that was raised in front of the statue and lowered after a few minutes to show that the statue had disappeared. This trick involved a sophisticated use of perspective and angles. The history of manipulating people's attention has many examples that span different eras and cultures. Examples of which include the following events and phenomena, and they are not always as safe as in magic tricks, for example. Religious manipulation. In different historical periods, religious leaders and institutions have used faith and religion to control the masses. This includes waging religious wars, inquisitions, and mass messianic movements. Political manipulation. Politicians and governments can also use manipulation to control the population. Examples include propaganda, censorship, threats, and outside influences on elections. Media manipulation. The media can be used to influence public opinion and manipulate stereotypes. This can include the dissemination of fake news and manipulation of photographs.
We've just received information that the young Albanian national fleeing in this video is attempting to escape terrorist reprisals in her village.
Advertising and marketing often use psychological techniques to persuade consumers to purchase goods or services. This includes techniques such as using emotions, creating artificial scarcity, and creating brand images. Social manipulation. People may use manipulation in their relationships to achieve their goals. This includes manipulation of emotions, manipulation of information, and even manipulation of the mind. The history of human manipulation should serve as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking and awareness in our society. Understanding manipulation techniques can help people better protect themselves from influence and make more informed decisions. But how do we realize that our attention is being targeted? It takes quite a bit of practice, but first, we need to at least understand what we are dealing with. Let's familiarize ourselves with the basic techniques of attention capture. Information noise. Information glut can cause people to filter out much of the data, relying on simplistic sources such as news headlines or social media posts that may be manipulated or biased. Emotional response. Strong emotions such as fear or outrage can be triggered by tailored messages to make people act impulsively without thinking through all the information. Limited choice. By giving people a limited number of options or creating the illusion of choice, it is possible to steer their decisions in the desired direction. Social proof and majority following. People tend to imitate the actions of others in uncertain situations. This tendency can be used to create the illusion of widespread support for a particular product idea or candidate. Commitment overload and consistency. When people become involved in a series of small commitments, they are more easily led gradually to commit to a larger action that they may not have been initially inclined to do. Distraction. People are less likely to notice inconsistencies or manipulations when their attention is diverted to other, less important things. Agenda management. By controlling the topics people hear and talk about every day, you can shape their priorities and attitudes. Using authoritative sources, people are more likely to believe and follow information presented by an authority or expert. Framing. By changing the way information is presented, you can significantly influence people's reactions. For example, emphasizing losses instead of gains makes people more conservative in their assessment of possible risks. These techniques combine to create powerful tools for manipulation and control that can be used for both innocuous and more malicious purposes. One of the most prominent examples of the use of attention-grabbing techniques in history involves the propaganda of Nazi Germany during the reign of Adolf Hitler. Organized by propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, Nazi propaganda used a wide range of media and communications to gain popular support, spread their ideology, and demonize their enemies. Some of the key elements of Nazi propaganda included mass rallies. The Nazis organized large-scale, carefully choreographed rallies such as those held at Nuremberg to demonstrate the power and support of the regime. The power and grandeur of the rallies were designed to elicit excitement and emotional payoff from participants and spectators. Radio broadcasting. Hitler and the Nazis used radio as a means to reach a wide audience, regularly broadcasting speeches and propaganda programs to create an image of enemies and reinforce nationalist feelings among the people. Censorship and media control. The Nazis strictly controlled the press and the arts, banning any works that might contradict their ideology and promoting those that supported it. Books that did not conform to Nazi ideology were banned and burned. Use of symbolism. Swastikas and other Nazi symbols were everywhere, creating a universal and powerful visual language that became synonymous with the Nazi Party and its ideology. Propaganda and education. Curricula were redesigned to promote Nazi ideology to the youth. School children were taught to believe in the superiority of the Aryan race and to hate Jews and other inferior people. Film and art. Films and works of art were used to spread Nazi ideology and to show Germany in an idealized light. Scapegoating. The Nazis created an image of Jews as the enemy who were responsible for all of Germany's problems, using them as a scapegoat. These are just a few examples of how Nazi propaganda used media and psychological techniques to manipulate the attention and consciousness of the masses to consolidate their power and realize their goals. These actions led to one of the darkest periods in modern history. Does this remind you of anything? The current situation in the world very much echoes the use of these techniques, and we see history beginning to repeat itself. Are we all doomed? Perhaps we are no longer able to influence the processes that have already been launched, but we can still take our own lives into our own hands. And the most important thing we can do at this stage is to learn to analyze and filter information. Whether it's another political ad, the news, or a call from a friend, it's always important to remember to focus and think critically. And now the most important decision is up to you. Do I want to be the wingman or the leader of my life? And where is my focus of attention directed right now? Can you confidently say that you own the situation, not the situation that owns me? I believe that we all have the potential to create. We just need to unlock it. You can continue to avoid these questions, or you can subscribe to the channel, put a bell on, and continue to explore yourself and the world.